Hey, everybody, this is Dan Keldsen, Chief Innovation Officer and your host of Next Future Today. I work at infocap.ai, and this podcast existed before I joined Infocap, but it aligns awesomely with what we do, and specifically with my next guest, who is May Cheng, acting CIO at the International Trade Administration, which is a government department agency in the federal government. She's been around in federal government roles for a little over 20 years and has a commercial background as well that she brings to the party. And I got to first meet her. I was moderating. She was one of three awesome panelists on a panel called Delivering Measurable Results. And this was at the Engage FedGov panel run by Shelley and team, if you know Orange Slices. Awesome events company that's very dedicated to bringing together sort of commercial and federal needs and discussion. So ton of buzz on that session and that entire half day. So I knew from the panel prep and the discussion that we had, and a little bit of follow-up right after we had to all leave the building and head off to the rest of our day, that May had experience that was going to be applicable to people who listen next Future Today. And I had an idea that it was going to be a very fruitful discussion, but I had no idea just how fruitful it was going to be. We talked about a lot of things that are kind of rare to talk about in large-scale IT sorts of situations, which can often be focused purely on the technology and how wonderful that is, or how complicated it is, or how popular it is, or whatever. A lot of things that have to do far less, as it turns out, with having success and delivering results and managing change among your staff or who you serve as constituents or consumers or whoever it might actually be. So we talked about some things that I don't often get to talk to people about these days because they're a different level of concern. It's just, how do you get things done? Do you rely on top-down power to push change? Do you use bottom up? Both is what I would say. But how do you actually do that? So we talk a lot about that. I won't give away too much, but we went into some details that I think are very rare to be discussed and incredibly useful and powerful. And I would highly recommend that you listen to this and take some notes, because it's she covers a lot of things about how she failed in some instances where she had a vision, tried to push it, maybe, and didn't quite listen to people who were stopping or not on board, and didn't fold that in until she did. And then it suddenly turned around and actually had a huge win that wouldn't have been possible if she just tried to keep kind of plowing through things, which can be useful too, but not always when you're dealing with resistance to change sort of issues. Anyhow, clearly, I love this topic or the series of topics that all tie together here. Great to be able to surface some real war stories and success stories, because I think it's important to leverage both of those if we're going to grow and improve, which of course we also talked about. Anyhow, let's go for it right now. The point of Next Future Today, and I came up with it actually April 2020. So in the midst of COVID, who knew what was going to happen? We can tie this into Agile. So part of it is, I was thinking, because I've had a background in market research, what are people doing? You have a strategy, and then I mess up these kinds of quotes, but in the armed forces, it's your plan doesn't survive contact with the enemy. January 1st, 2020, executives had a certain vision. And then a lockdown happened on Friday the 13th, as it turns out, in March. And now what? I was curious, so for companies that had these plans and that are trying to build something towards the future, right? Did they slam on the brakes and panic? Did they, take a good look at their strategy and say, well, this part is still fine, or the whole thing is fine, and actually we did the right thing, like technical debt, and legacy systems that are killing us that we got rid of already. So we're ahead of the game, and we know that our competitors are way behind. What was the situation? And the saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago or 80 years ago, or whatever the number actually is in the saying. The next best is today, right? So in the midst of uncertainty, which has always been there, now what? So what I'm trying to do with Next Future Today is to make sure that people are sort of given permission, if they've stuck, or if their bosses put the brakes on something or whatever, that they can think about what can I actually do that maybe isn't what I think we should really ultimately do, but I can take action, and it's thoughtful enough that you can get moving in the right direction and get unstuck. That's ultimately what we're trying to do at InfoCap. Is we do a lot of work with federal government. We want it to work fantastically, to constituents and everybody have the best experience possible. And it doesn't have to take forever to put those things in place. And it doesn't have to cost billions of dollars. It tends to cost a lot less. One thing that I noticed in your LinkedIn profile, you said about one particularly noteworthy achievement involved my leadership in transforming a federal agency into a digital, virtually paperless work environment in only 9 months, which is kind of unheard of in a lot of situations, but government for sure. Enabling the public to interact with government anytime, anywhere, on any device. So that's exactly the kind of story that I like to hear about. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Dan, for inviting me to this podcast. So about that one, I was super proud because, like you say, 9 months. Usually, especially in government space, probably not many things can we actually achieve or arrive at the finish line. So a lot of times the project fail. It's not because the leadership. Sometimes it's not because the technologies. Sometimes it's the timing. And a lot of times it's not really about resources, but it's about unclear roles, responsibilities.
Sure.
And the trust was not there. Oh, and I mentioned this, right? Trust-based relationship.
Yep.
We have to have that fundamental trust among one another. So we have this huge backlog. The claim could take 265 days to reach that final adjudication. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So at the time, I was also looking for a solution, like what can we provide to the workforce? So from my end, we did market research, and then we actually worked with a small business company. They came in and they did the digitalization. We did the pilot first, but of course, I got a lot of resistance from supervisor managers that were skeptical about out of sight, out of mind. Can I still see them? How do I know they're working?
Right. Yeah.
You know? So I said, okay, how about we start with 30 people? And you are part of it too. And then we're going to do weekly check-in. How are things going? My stakeholders, so the people in the mission areas, they will tell me how comfortable they are. And so when they told me that they're ready to move on to the next phase, which is deploy to all 23 states. So because everybody was very clear, I did it in a way. It's a mix of Agile. Back then, I call that rapid incremental development type of work, right? So it's like starting with something small, and then you learn from it and you adopt, right?
Yeah.
So
like a minimum.
Nowadays there's a sexy word, Agile development, but I still had the wonderful traditional project management approach at the time, because I got the charter. I lay out who's the project sponsor, who's my key stakeholder, and who's in charge of the entire project, which is me, and then who are the contractors, And then also we had to get all that laid out before we can actually get acquisition and the contract in place.
Sure.
But overall, the reason, again, why 9 months, that's because we got all the buy-ins, and also it's just perfect timing. The approach, the methodologies, and of course, I also believe that a strong PM leadership is also very key. If they don't have strong leadership, they're not the one who will do like removing all the roadblocks and impediments, have a daily stand up. Hey, what have we done yesterday?
Yep.
What's today's work? And what impediments you have. So if that PM is not strong enough and really work for the team, it will not succeed either. So I think all the players play their part.
Yep.
You will see magic happen. You will see velocity happen.
As long as it's not nefarious. I mean, there's plenty of legitimate reasons, as you just said, on why that's a good thing and why it helps. Like, it didn't benefit anybody to delay these decisions further. So like the 9-month scenario that you talked about, how long do you think it would normally be under regular circumstances for somebody who didn't line up everything that you did?
I like that question because a lot of times, never. It becomes sunk cost. Yeah. It was a great idea, but because maybe 80% of players play their role, but if 1 or 2 or even 5%, okay, let's just say 1% did not play their role.
Right.
It will cause major delay, especially if that person holds a key decision point.
Right.
It will either not happen or at least at the minimum 15 months.
That sounds right to me.
It will definitely cause delay.
Yeah.
A lot of times technology is not the complicated part. It's actually the easiest, simple part of the whole situation.
Yes.
A lot of is the players, right?
So part of the reason I even bring these up is, so talking about culture, there's always this concern in larger organizations, especially on how do you change the culture. There's always resistance to change, with some of that's just laziness, in my opinion, that we assume that people don't like change. People don't like to be forced to change. They don't want change that seems to harm them or makes it harder for them to do their jobs, right? There are plenty of, like people being able to work remotely and do the work, then they don't feel the burden of, I have all these cases that are stacked up that are 200 days old and they're only getting worse.
I love that. During that time, we also had to do the training, user adoption training. They had to learn the new tool. And that's why we had to work with the union, because it changed the way they work.
Yeah.
Right? That's very important. Yeah. We did not get resistance from the staff because they're looking forward to the telework. They want that. They want that final candy they can get. So everybody just quickly, they wish not, maybe 6 months, not 9 months, come quickly, right? Yes. When that final objective and goal was clear to their benefit, to their advantage, like you said, it's not because people don't want to change. A lot of times because the change is not really benefiting them. Yeah. Or it's not clear. It's not clear to them to accept the change.
Yeah. Well, it's not explained to them, and they're not even consulted often. It says, hey, by the way, here's the new thing. Oh, that's great. What does it do?
Yeah. And that's why, back to my point about every player played their roles really well during that time, because we have to do a union negotiation, and I did not have to be part of it. What I had experienced was the PM owns everything. I had to talk to the union. I had to talk to the supervisor. I had to do everything, and all my stakeholders were sitting there and waiting. Oh, no, you're the PM. I'm not doing it. They forgot, just like nowadays we talk about product delivery, they forgot they are part of the entire product team, or integrated project, IPT, right? Integrated project team. They don't know that's the role they should play.
Right.
So those are the ones that usually either delay or just fell apart.
Right. Yeah. Are there stories that you tell, when you're working with a new team and you're trying to get things done? Are there books that you refer to? Are there stories from your own experience that you refer to help generate? If you can see that there's cultural change needed, how do you approach introducing that?
Work with people who are accepting first.
Sure. Okay.
Then slowly, gradually work with the resistant. Yeah. And a lot of times they see, because I already work with those people first, or their offices, right? They get to use something faster, sooner. And then others will see, okay, they get the candies faster. What's going on over there? And then they will come and then they learn to actually provide the learning opportunities and coaching to bring the safe methodologies to this agency.
Yeah.
So everybody learn, but the learning curve is different. But I don't do one size fits all. If you are earlier, you get more things done. That's fine. But if you learn slower, it's up to you. The big picture is it's not so much about this unit or this office, this team, but it's overall for the agency, overall for the government. When we serve the public, they benefit. And I can see the result. Of course, we always want to trial and error, right? If it doesn't work, but I see it's working.
Right.
So I will continue to work with every corner of my agency.
I'm going to hit another piece. So finding influencers, that's usually, you want to find positive influencers, right?
Oh, yes.
But what I found, because I get very curious about things, which is why I end up with tons and tons of books on various subjects. So how do you take that? Because I've always been involved in enterprise technology stuff. So it's more employee focused and empowering them to serve whoever they serve. It could be government, doesn't matter. And what I found is, are you familiar with Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, the bell curve kind of idea for adoption?
I know of the concept. But
Okay. Well, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, the Crossing the Chasm model is more for startups. So you have some idea that might seem crazy to most people, and that's where early, innovators and early adopters live. Then there's a gap, the chasm, which is where, you can't only rely on people who are always excited about technology, right? So if you jump over that chasm, it needs to fit a need for that bigger portion of the bell curve. And then there's laggards, and there's a long tail that are going to wait 20 years before they even think about these.
Right. They will probably never adopt. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
has to be totally safe, thoroughly proven, as cheap as possible, and nobody's going to lose their job because they chose something that's so cutting edge it's not going to exist anymore. So what I found is that, so you would think looking at a bell curve, you want to focus at the middle, right? Because that's where everybody is. But you want to find the positive influencers who can be cheerleaders and have their own expertise and have followers and things like that. For me, it's also talking to the people who are the laggards or the Luddites or the naysayers, whatever label you want to throw on them. They have their complaints. Sometimes they're not legit, but often they are, and they need, this is a session to tell me what you don't like about not just the idea that we're bouncing around, but what are you upset about for how you do your job right now, or whatever. And those people, if they started out like your worst enemy, they can turn into the best influencers possible, because once they get it and they see it and they experience a benefit, then suddenly they're like, this is the best thing in the world. I can't wait to do telework or whatever it is. And that is awesome, because then you can pull from both sides, and that helps it sort of naturally then hones in on the vast majority of people who are just kind of waiting to see where they should go. So that they don't have a hard and fast.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So besides the time space, right? I mentioned for people to just come and talk with me.
Sure.
But then also from people who are not on my team. When we kick off this SAFE methodology to the entire agency, initially no one from the business, from the mission areas, no one. They say, that's just an IT thing. That's just the OCIO thing. We also offer free coaching service. They don't have to pay. Mm-hmm. I think I also, reach out to them and hear their pain points. I think it's way straight, because I always want to know, what is it that you can say yes to?
Right.
What is it, right? Right? Maybe I can do something differently. What will take you to say yes? So I always want to find out. Once I open up and they open up, I also mentioned that at the panel that the first year I only had one adopter. Mm-hmm. And because he happened to be a senior executive, and after first year, he told everybody he loved it.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh man, May, you guys did something, some spell, you guys, which spell on him or something. What did you do to turn him? Right? So he was against us.
Yeah.
And then he became the first adopter, actually.
Yeah.
And then he was telling his leadership, this is great. And then he also, because he sees the process is actually bring faster capabilities that they can immediately use sooner.
Yeah.
Always listen to pain points and then tweak the process.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's important too, because it doesn't matter how great the product is.
Yeah.
If you just say, go, but you don't check in, you don't get feedback.
Yeah. Awesome. I love how, I knew from the prep we did for the panel and the actual panel and looking at your background that we would have some great things to talk about. So this is, I love how it did nicely dovetail with your experience. And I think it's pretty rare for people to realize to not just focus on the people that are the early cheerleaders. They're useful, but they can also have a reputation for being the crazy people. And therefore everybody else is like, well, if they did that, then I want nothing to do with it. So sort of bookmarking it by people that are normally it's in their blood to say no to everything instantly. If you dive into it, I sat on a panel with a CIO who he's one of these guys that always parachutes in to rescue a bad situation. And he said that the first thing that he does is and this is pre-COVID and all, so he would go in and walk around the office to find all the Dilbert posters and the demotivational posters and all those kinds of things. Because yes, they're funny, but they're there because there's a reason. There might be a lot of reasons why those are up there. So you don't want to just brush those off as as modern life. It's a Monday. What is it about that that's real? And just talk about it. So and he was like, I'm a totally transparent person. Tell me why. Here's I saw multiple copies of this poster, by the way, or this clip of the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What is it that's, because I don't, if there's something that sucks, let's stop doing that. Doctor, it hurts when I hit my head on the wall. Stop hitting your head on the wall. So things that you can change, it just, maybe you just need permission. I call it a license to innovate. There's just like, stop complaining about it and let's dive into it a little bit, and not be a therapist necessarily, but let's actually get beyond the, okay, yes, that sucks, but maybe that policy is outdated, but what specifically is it causing, and can we tie it to things? That's why I like that panel. It was all about how do you deliver results, because there's a lot of innovations that they might be fun, but they don't necessarily have a real lasting impact. So I lean towards technology because I love it, but it's too easy to like, this is going to solve everything, and then you don't do the work with your team or your stakeholders or whatever. So it's great to hear that you have such a sort of rich approach to how you handle these things, and need more
sustainable. Yeah, it has to be sustainable, right? So we can deploy technologies all day long, but if people don't love it, it's gonna be wasted and just collect dust. So so I want to thank you, Dan, for this opportunity. This is great.
No, this is fantastic. I'm glad we made it happen. That would have been even better if it was sooner, I suppose, but that's fine. All things in good time.
Yeah, anytime. And if you need another person, again, I'm pretty sure you probably have a long list of people that you schedule, but I can talk about a lot of things
Yeah. I mean, I think we could follow up for sure. And I'm always interested in being introduced to other people who would be able to contribute to this, because there's a lot of disempowerment of people that I'm trying to help abolish. So it doesn't matter if it's government or where it happens to be. If for me, if we can help get people unstuck and headed in the right direction, then that's a win. And those are, when we're doing work as InfoCap and implementing things like digitizing paperwork or whatever, then it's not just the technology. It's, look, we turned it from 200 days into a week. I did a project years ago. It used to take 6 weeks to process insurance eligibility forms, and we got like 80% of them down to under an hour. And nobody thought that was possible, and they resisted me. And I was like, well, I've seen this 25 years ago, by the way, when I first stepped into this industry. So it's definitely possible. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean that it's not possible. And then actually, I got a hug from a woman who ran customer service the day we went live. She was like, I can't believe this. It is so quiet. People aren't screaming at us. I was like,
Oh, that's wonderful.
Hallelujah. I told you, and I'm glad it worked, because that would be embarrassing. But thank you so much for making time.
A lot of things, it's possible. Yes, I believe in possibilities.
Yeah. We only know what we know. But it is great to be able to flip somebody around that was a total, like, this is never going to work.
Cynical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's exciting. Thank you again for making time. I definitely want to follow up, and maybe we'll do a deeper dive on SAFe or DevSecOps or any number of topics. But it's great to run into somebody who is very focused on technology, but also all the other stuff that is, as it turns out, much more important.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.